Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Keller and welcome back. Today we're talking about a typical pill that a lot of you might take with some frequency, maybe even took one today. It's something that people take sometimes for headaches. Sometimes you take it for a back spasm or for some cramps. Women sometimes take it on their period. And this class of medications, these pills are over the counter, so they're widely available. The question we're addressing today is, just because they're over the counter, does it mean that they're safe? And what should I be considering when I take these pills? So anybody have an idea what I'm talking about? Yeah? NSAIDs, or NSAIDs. I say NSAIDs, you say NSAIDs, whatever you want. NSAIDs, yes, it's an acronym. And I'm going to talk about what it means in a bit, but basically, if you're not familiar with this term, then you're certainly familiar with some of the brands like Advil, Motrin, Aleve. These are other brands, and you can find them at the pharmacy. Ibuprofen is the chemical name. There are others. Naproxen is one. So, and again, they're over the counter. You know, they're available. Usually the pill is 200 milligrams. Sometimes you can get them extra strength, prescribed to you up to 800 milligrams. And sometimes people just kind of take them, not like candy, but without much thought about, what they are and what they could be doing to your body. So I'm going to get into that a little bit, and you guys can decide if you feel like NSAIDs are a good thing for you. So NSAIDs, the term, stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Okay, it's a big, long, fancy word, but basically these evolved as alternatives to steroids. That's why they're called the non-steroids. So what's a steroid? Well, a steroid, you might be thinking, oh, it's like testosterone. It's that stuff you give yourself at the gym so you can pump more weight. That is one class of steroid, but in this particular case, we're talking about a different class. Those are called anabolic steroids. We're talking about the corticosteroids. And corticosteroids are things like cortisone, hydrocortisone. That might be a cream that you've seen at the pharmacy that you can put on a rash, or maybe at some point you've heard of prednisone or been even prescribed prednisone. Those are powerful anti-inflammatories. And they have been used and they've been around for a long time. But the reason that we started looking for alternatives is because steroids have a lot of side effects. They can lead to weight gain. They're terrible for your bones. They wreak havoc on your adrenal axis. So they came up with this class of non-steroidal drugs to help with the inflammation issue. So most of the time people are taking them as anti-inflammatories. So why are these anti-inflammatories? So basically, there's an enzymatic process in your body that is called the COX process. I'm going to make sure that you see the spelling so there's no misunderstandings. So the COX process. So these anti-inflammatories are what we call COX inhibitors. And so they can block this portion of the inflammatory cascade, so they can kind of keep the white blood cells from kind of releasing all their cytokines and leading to the swelling and the redness and the pain that's associated with an injury. Okay. The problem is that COX, as an enzymatic process, has a couple arms to it, and there's COX-1 and there's COX-2. Okay. So COX-2 is really what we're targeting, and that's the part of the inflammatory cascade that kind of leads to the swelling and the pain and all the issues. And the thing that we want to control so that we feel better. But COX-1 is a viable process that really has a lot of positives to it. It helps heal. It produces special chemicals that are important for our body. One of them predominantly is the substance that helps protect the lining of the stomach. So if you take something like Advil that will block this, then guess what? We're kind of putting an X through this whole thing, and now we've blocked not only the bad inflammatory stuff, but some of that good stuff that we wanted. So what happens? Well, I mentioned the stomach as an issue, so let's go straight there. You may have heard that, if you take a bunch of ibuprofen, it can irritate your stomach. Well, that is true. Actually, what's happening is it is blocking the production of some of the natural chemicals that are meant to protect your stomach. And if you do that too much, you can actually irritate the stomach, and in worse conditions, you can actually get an ulcer that can lead to a very serious condition where you could actually bleed from that stomach ulcer. And your stomach, keep in mind, is a very acidic environment. So it's churning out hydrochloric acid. And that's a crazy, crazy acidic acid that we use to digest food. But our stomach is good at protecting itself against that. If we block the natural protection, then the acid can start eating away at our stomach. And then you end up with something called gastritis. So you've probably heard of gastritis. It's just a fancy name for inflammation of the stomach. And it can be actually quite serious. So some of the symptoms of gastritis start with like maybe a dull ache, usually what we call substernal, like kind of right in here. It sometimes can increase to a burn. Sometimes it can get really bad and feel like it's gnawing right through you. You might feel like you want to eat something to calm it down, but then you do and it feels worse, or it just feels better just for a little bit of time. And you might feel like you're getting a gassy feeling of bloating, you're burping a lot. All these can be symptoms of gastritis. Sometimes it can even get more serious and you can start developing an ulcer. And some of the more serious symptoms could be nausea, vomiting, and especially if you ever vomit up blood, or if you ever notice your stool has become dark and tarry. Gross to think about, but in medicine we got to think about the other end. If your stool is gross and tarry, what in medicine we call melena, it means that there's blood that's come out of your stomach and then been digested along the way and gets this kind of like almost like molasses black consistency. So if you ever see those or ever feel those, you need to seek medical attention right away, because you can bleed out from a stomach ulcer and actually die from it. So we've talked a little bit about gastritis, but there are other things that taking an NSAID can affect. And I just want to go over them. You guys should know. Number one, they can affect your heart. And they have done studies where especially people who are prone to heart issues can get what's called congestive heart failure. And that means that your heart gets weakened and can't keep up with the blood, and you start to basically build up fluid in your body. You can notice it in your legs. You can notice it in your lungs by becoming short of breath. And they've seen actually a 20% increase, 20% increase in this thing that I'm calling CHF, congestive heart failure. So 20% risk in patients who were susceptible to it just from taking something as quote unquote harmless as ibuprofen or Advil. So these are serious things. Also, heart attacks. We all know what that is. You definitely don't want one. It has been shown that your risk of a heart attack skyrockets up after taking ibuprofen. Not just that day, but for like the full week after it. So these protective things that are made in this Cox reaction that we are blocking, they're really necessary for our bodies. And if we stop them, we're putting ourselves at risk. Another thing is kidneys. You can actually damage your kidneys if you take too much of something like an NSAID or if you take it too frequently. So yeah, I know I'm ruining your day because you've had a headache or you've got a muscle tear, and gosh, now my doctor dude on Facebook is telling me I can't even take Advil, what I thought was the most harmless of the things out there. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to give you some alternatives. Of course, in medicine, it's always about weighing risks and benefits. And there may come a time where really, you got to take something like a steroid or ibuprofen because it's just something else isn't going to work. But keep in mind that you got to weigh those risks and benefits. So let's look at some alternatives because maybe they will do the trick for you. The first thing is, since really this is all about reducing inflammation, try to find other ways to reduce inflammation. And one amazing way to do that is dietarily. So try to have a diet that's low inflammatory or low in inflammation. That could mean cutting out dairy. That could mean cutting out gluten. You can also do these antibody tests like almost like food allergy tests that can show you certain foods that might be bad for your body and your system in particular. That could also mean avoiding alcohol, which can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. So keep those things in mind, and try to eat a healthy diet without. And if you opt for organic foods, hey, now you're avoiding the pesticides and some of the hormones and some of the other chemicals that can also be very inflammatory to your body. So that's one thing. Number two, if you do have to take, something like an NSAID, try to protect your stomach. And that can mean basically avoiding other things that irritate the stomach. Caffeine's a big one. Nicotine and cigarettes, terrible for your stomach, okay? Alcohol, again, very bad for your stomach, very irritating. So if you find that you're taking them, really try to reduce the risk by avoiding things like coffee at the same time at least, and alcohol and cigarettes. And then we get into some of the natural anti-inflammatory things, and that's what I want to show you. This is where it gets a little more exciting. So we've got curcumin. This is one brand. This is a great brand, curcumin. And curcumin is a naturally occurring chemical. It's what's found in turmeric. Turmeric is a natural spice. It's got that yellow color, but actually curcumin, and when you concentrate it out, you're getting a much higher concentration than regular turmeric, has been shown to be a powerful natural anti-inflammatory. There's some other things we can have. Ginger, a nice root. Ginger is anti-inflammatory. You can have it in tea. You can add it to your food. That's two great ways to have ginger. And then good old garlic. Yeah, makes your breath smell bad. It comes out your pores. But garlic is a very powerful anti-inflammatory. So, you've got to weigh the risks benefits, but you might have to deal with a little bit of bad breath or a little bit of that garlic smell if you want to avoid things like heart failure or heart attack or, a hole in your stomach. So, weigh the odds, but I think if you really think about it, you'll know what feels more important. And then there are other things that you can do. Other things you can take. MSM is a nice anti-inflammatory. And then if you've tried with natural anti-inflammatories, and there are combos like Whole Foods or vitamin shops will make things called COX inhibitors. They're literally like the natural compilation of things that handle that enzymatic process that we talked about, that same kind of target, but they're going to give you the good blockage and not block those other things that you want to salvage and save and protect. And then a lot of the other options might have to do with what you're trying to treat underneath. So if it's a headache, for example, and you're taking ibuprofen all the time for a headache, talk to your doctor about other alternatives just for headaches. It could be that you've got tension headaches and they have everything to do with like your posture. I'm going to do a video series on that. It could have to do with your eyes and your eyesight. It could be that you're getting migraines and you could be on a migraine medication or another migraine treatment instead of the anti-inflammatories. So think about that. If it's a musculoskeletal thing, talk to your doctor. Is there another treatment you could do for that? Physical therapy to really work on that particular joint. Other injection therapies for that joint that could include prolotherapy or platelet-rich plasma or some of the biological injections that are out there that could help. So think good and hard about what the particular issue is, and instead of just reaching reflexively for that Aleve or that ibuprofen, just keep in mind these even though they're over the counter, there are serious side effects with them. And just when you're informed, you make better decisions, and at least if you run across something, you know what you're getting into. Okay, excuse me. So just to wrap up, we were talking about NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, Aleve, Advil, ibuprofen. A lot of people take them for a lot of things. Just keep in mind, they not only block the inflammatory cascade, but they block a lot of things that we really need. And blocking those can lead to issues with your stomach, issues with your kidneys, issues with your heart, and some of those situations are actually life-threatening. So just really think about possible alternatives like turmeric and curcumin, ginger, garlic, MSM, or other therapies depending on your condition that might help handle your issue, your problem, and not put you at risk for some of those life-threatening things. I think that's good for today. All right, hope you enjoyed. Any questions, comments, please let me know. You can write to us and we'll handle it and we'll answer them next time. And hope you enjoyed it. Again, Dr. Keller, see you next time.